Welcome to the Church Resource, where we talk about the best resources for pastors, leaders, and lay people. This is a book today that I think everybody should have on their shelf, have in their hands, and look at pretty often, but it's a resource that's called Life Together, the Classic Exploration of Christian Community by Dietrich Bonhoeffer. Now, I'll say right up front that I understand some people have a little bit of an issue with Dietrich Bonhoeffer and some other works, and I understand that. But for this book and for this particular subject and topic, I think this is an excellent resource for you to have. It is something that, again, you should want to refer back to and quote even. But I love this book, and it is a classic. And as we've said before, we don't like to ruin books by calling them classics, because then people may read them, may not. We just put them on a shelf and say, hey, I've got a classic up there. But this is one that I think you really ought to pay attention to. It is really on fostering authentic Christian community. And I first was exposed to this when I was in seminary. I was with a group of even professors and other men within my church who were talking about how do we grow and enrich the communities that we have. It's not just about putting people together in the same room, but it is about making sure that we foster really some growth and true fellowship that is grounded in the Word. They came away from reading this book with the phrase, life together under the Word, and that would flavor everything that we did within that church. So it's, again, foundational for me as I understand the faith, and I've got it marked up, underlined, and check marks in the margins where that make me remember to go back to certain places and pages. But I'll tell you that he talks about what has been the case in community, that sometimes, again, it's just a gathering of people together, but there has to be more to that. He talks about every aspect, really, of the Christian life, and through whether we're talking about community or we're talking about small groups or we're talking about even your personal devotion time alone, how all of these things can be enriched and can get you closer to the Father, closer to each other at a much deeper level. And so even things like where Paul says that we should speak to one another in psalms, hymns, and spiritual songs, Bonhoeffer goes through just about a whole chapter of what the Psalms will teach us, and that we ought to be praying the prayers of the Psalms, that these are prayers really from Christ's mouth and heart, that we could follow these Psalms, that we could pray the Psalms together and alone, again, in our personal devotion time, but that we have this opportunity to understand and to give back the words of Jesus right back to him and to the Father. So that was an important part of the book for me. Also, in kind of reclaiming, I think, the solemnity, the deep nature of the Lord's Supper, and just some of these practices that are so overlooked. I mean, just mentioned two of them: daily prayer and of the Lord's Supper. But all of these ways that we can just understand a better way to get in touch with God and to understand Him better, so that, as Bonhoeffer has said, that we have often not received the true spiritual gifts, the depths of spiritual gifts that we could have. He says, because we prevent God from giving us that, because we do not give thanks for daily gifts. So it's even in your regular daily prayer that he says that it can be so much more if we would just recognize what God has done, and the possibilities of kind of exploring what God means for us to take away from these various practices, and just as we gather together, how much more rich those opportunities can be. I appreciate and pulled out that text. I just remember it from the book, and you can certainly see this in throughout the book. But there's this one phrase that he uses that is about, as we're together in community, as we are, as one person counsels another, along the lines of Romans 15:14, that says that we have the ability to counsel one another. And this is not trained people with a doctorate in psychology or anything, but this is that we're able to do that, Christian upon Christian, to do that as we live life together, as we're fellowship, in community together. So Bonhoeffer says that we sometimes one of us has more of Christ in his mouth or on his lips than the person we're talking to. In other words, just like Galatians 6 would say that the one of you who is spiritual should restore such a person. Well, I think that's what Bonhoeffer's getting at, that on one day it might be that you're a little bit stronger than I am, and so you would talk to me on a particular topic or some issue that's going on, and you might be more in tune with Christ that day than I am, and that's certainly understandable. But other days on another topic, another event, and an opportunity, I could be more in tune, more in touch with the Holy Spirit than you are. So that's where this refining and fine tuning happens within the context of community. And again, why I think this is such a wonderful book, and certainly something that you need to be aware of. Again, I studied this in a context of a small group. We had older men kind of teaching through it and giving their reflections on it. So I just think that it's a great opportunity for you to one-on-one disciple somebody, again, within a small group. It can be good teaching material for people to understand what we do, more than just coming together on a Sunday or Wednesday for an hour or two during that week, but what we can really do to deepen and foster that spiritual community that God means for the church to be. So again, I would heartily recommend this book. It's Life Together by Dietrich Bonhoeffer, something that you need to get a hold of, and at least every pastor, but I think every church person, everyone who is a follower of Christ ought to be aware of these things and how we can enrich our time with Christ and with each other. So just one book for my shelf that's been helpful to me as I've been in ministry, and even as I think through those things today. So if you would want to recommend anything for us that we would be able to cover on future episodes of this podcast, then I want to suggest that you go to thechurchresource@gmail.com. Thanks for listening to us. And again, that email is thechurchresource@gmail.com.